Okay, here is the issue. In an age of insatiation, people are often much less excited about the things we have now and much more excited about what's next. Future smartphones over current smartphones. And whenever there is search volume for anything, there will be people who try and feed that demand. Enter fake smartphone leaks. It doesn't help that it is very easy to create a leak. A Geekbench screenshot can be edited by anyone who knows how to use Paint, and whilst a render is a little trickier to do right, here's an example of me creating one myself. I'll start with a photo of the Samsung Galaxy S9, stretch it out a bit, add in the display, shrink those bezels down, and add a bit of glare from the curve of the screen. And voila! This is the Samsung Galaxy S10. Maybe. So the fact that it is so easy to create these fake leaks means it's a pretty useful skill to be able to spot them. So in this video, I'm going to tell you the 5 things that you're going to need to be able to dissect leaks on your own, to have a pretty good idea as to whether or not they're legitimate or they're made by some kid in their parents' basement. Let's get right into it. The first thing, and probably at the same time the most obvious, is how difficult would this leak be to fake? Take this screenshot, which was supposedly from the HTC 11, a phone which even today doesn't actually exist. This was then posted on by Slashleaks and many different publications as almost proof that this phone was in the works. But if you look a little closer, you might actually recognize this screen as part of the EMUI operating system. So essentially this story that was breaking headlines started out by one person taking a screenshot on their Huawei smartphone and changing a couple of the entries. And this is just one of quite a few different examples demonstrating our first point. If it's easy to do, then just be cautious, because whilst it's not a guarantee that it's fake, it's just more likely. Now, very quickly, a word from Squarespace, the sponsor of this video. Whether you need a domain, website, or an online store, make it with Squarespace. Another very recent example of this was with the Galaxy Note 9, which was claimed to be packing a next generation Exynos 9820 chip. And whilst the numbers it pulled on benchmarks were believable, if you look at the identifier at the bottom, this is a unique reference to Samsung's Exynos 8895, aka last year's processor. So this leak was essentially some person just playing around with their Samsung Galaxy S8. Number 2, the source. I would say the most important factor when looking at a leak is, who is it coming from? And there's a bit of a spectrum here. If a video is posted on a company's official YouTube channel, it's a real deal. And this does sound crazy, but this was actually what happened with the Samsung Galaxy S9. The company released the S9 trailer before they'd actually announced the phone, effectively officially leaking their own device. Pretty tragic stuff. On the other hand, if a sketchy benchmark shows up on leaks4u.com, you're probably going to want to take it with a bit more of a pinch of salt. And this leads on to number 3, multiple sources. And we have to be a little bit careful about this one. A lot of the time when leaks come out, you'll see the same thing plastered across every single smartphone news site. And it would be easy to think, okay, 20 different news sites have leaked the iPhone 11, therefore it must be true. This is not the same as having multiple sources. All this is multiple publications talking about one particular leak. An example of having multiple sources would be what we've seen with the Galaxy Note 9. Taking a look at this tweet by Ice Universe, who is already on his own a fairly trustworthy source, shows a new camera arrangement from Samsung on the back of the phone. And this coincides exactly with a completely independent leak from case company Olixar. So the fact that you've got these two completely different sources with different pieces of information, but information that lines up perfectly, makes this much less likely to be a fake leak. Okay, number 4. Is it plausible? Which sounds kind of self-explanatory, but there is more to it than, does this leak look like what we're expecting the phone to look like? Take this Samsung Galaxy S10 leak, which again has been pretty widely documented by now. In terms of form factor, it's very much along the lines of what we would expect. Large display, a curved screen, like previous Samsung flagships, and even slimmer bezels than the most cutting-edge phones today. On that basis alone, it'd be pretty easy to reach the conclusion that this has a fair chance of being real, maybe a 40 to 50% chance. But if we then look at some of the other factors, plausibility really starts to take a dive. Would Samsung really go for a niche pop-up camera with its mainline flagship phone? Or have they really managed to get a camera beneath the display? Then there's the timing. We have never seen a full prototype Samsung phone more than 2 months before the launch, and yet here we are, supposedly with one 6 months or maybe more before announcement. The way it usually works is that these phones are sent to partners only a couple months before the actual event, and until this time, they are kept under some pretty serious embargoes. Not to mention, the photo looks like it's been taken outdoors, so whilst S10 prototypes probably do exist by now, the idea that someone is just walking around outside with one of them seems unlikely. So after factorizing all of this in, I'd say the plausibility falls from 50% to more like 5%. And so this leads us finally on to number 5, inconsistencies. Most of the more established smartphone brands, and really just brands generally, are very particular about how they want things done. They have to be. And so even a slight misstep in a rumor is often all we need to almost know it's a fake. Take, for example, the Google Ultra Pixel, a phone that was rumored to come out last year alongside the Google Pixel 2. Now, I was pretty much the first person to actually talk about this phone, and it did turn out to be a hoax. And looking back, we can see that whilst the leaks had plausibility, they kind of made sense, they fit in with what Google might have done with their next phone, there were enough inconsistencies that I didn't spot at the time that actually make it quite hard to swallow, quite indicative that it was a hoax. For example, the P in Ultra Pixel is actually lowercase, whereas with their other phones, it's uppercase, which seems like a small thing, but it is not the kind of mistake a brand like Google is likely to make. Alternatively, we could look at this supposed iPhone SE 2 leak from a couple of years ago. This was a week before Apple was set to release the next iPhone SE, which we still haven't seen yet, by the way. And whilst initially convincing in that it has the characteristics of the iPhone 6S, but in this smaller form factor, taking a look at the bottom of the phone raises doubts. The large cutouts around the headphone jack and the lightning port would be a stark departure from other Apple phones. And the speaker grills are larger than any past iPhone, which would be unlikely given that the SE phones should be smaller versions of the full-size iPhones. I would say that hindsight is quite a dangerous thing. It's very easy to look back at the mistakes we've made in the past, learn from them, and then tell yourself that we'll never make them again. That's not necessarily true, but the 5 things that we have gone through in this video should give you some pretty robust predictive power when it comes to leaks. You should now be able to see a leak and better judge for yourself what your opinion is on it. Alright, I know that a lot of you guys who watch my videos are the creators, the entrepreneurs, the future business people, and Squarespace is a pretty good place to start. I've already been using and recommending Squarespace before the company even reached out, for a few main reasons. You can set up your own domain name in Squarespace, or transfer an existing one you've had from before. It is very easy to set up an online store. The entire layout can be ready in minutes. And also, it's worry-free. You never need to stress about patching or updating your website or installing new plugins. It is all done for you. So head over to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch straight into it, go to squarespace.com/Mr. Who's the Boss to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. My name is Aaron, this is Mr. Who's the Boss, and I'll catch you guys next time.